Hello everyone, and welcome to another Gear Talk. That's right, we do these every other, gotta get the Lancer back. I do this every other Thursday at 5 o'clock, and here we are once again. I am in a sitting position at the moment, so you know what that means. It means that we are doing another tier list. Me and good old squeaky chair make our return. So, we're going to be covering Gabe's Convoy this time, the last of all of the groups I've talked about, and we're just going to go over where all the characters from that discussion series fall into a tier list of, again, for the high, mid, and lower tiers of basically the characters' power leveling. We do have some characters here where I'm going to be breaking some rules for, but there's a reason for it, and I think it makes sense why we're breaking some rules. So yeah, let's just get right into it, and let's just get started looking over at the Gabe's Convoy discussion series tier list where everyone falls. As always, we have everything just as we always do with the tier list. As you can see, we got all the characters, we got the high, medium, low, and for anyone who does not know, the high tier characters, I always consider those to be like above Onyx Guard level, kind of, or like that's where Onyx Guard would be around. Mid tier, you normally see people that are normally around the level of or higher than a Gear Soldier. Some people who fall below make it into the mid tier, but that's only because like there's reasonings or they've hardened and they've become the ability to become higher than lower tier, and the lower tier really are for characters who don't have a lot of battle experience, or we don't get a lot of to see where we can rank them, or characters that even though they're trained gears, they're still like the lower echelon that we have here. So, starting off, we do have the low tier this time. If anyone watched the last tier list, we didn't have anyone in low tier, so we do have some low tier characters this time around. Starting off with the low tier, we actually have Tyrone Shepherd being the first one in. Now, Tyrone is the very bottom of the barrel, and we're going to go over who's next up. You can probably guess who it is, but we're going to start with Tyrone first, because when it comes to Tyrone, we don't get a lot of him, period. Now, Marcella and Tyrone are two characters that make their appearance in Tactics. They're the ones that come in, they're Echo 5. Sid, along with Gabe, they both find them and recruit them in. That is like the last time we ever see them in cutscenes or anything. Now, they're in-game. You can have them and play with them and have them level up and all of that. But the thing you have to understand is that when it comes to a canonical standpoint of things, when it comes to Tyrone, we don't know anything about Tyrone after him and Marcella were found over at Echo, like where everything was left after Ukkon went through. We don't know anything else after that. For anyone who watched my playthrough of everything, he died roughly early on into everything, which is very sad. So canonically, we don't know what happens after that, but we do know that he joins, and we're going to just jump into the next character, and we'll just talk about them both kind of together for the rest of this. We have Marcella Trin ahead of Tyrone. Now, the reason that she is ahead of Tyrone is actually because of the fact that during everything we see in cutscenes, we see that Tyrone at least took some form of minor injury, nothing big or bad, but he was at least like down where Marcella had to look over him and she had to look for anyone coming by. Marcella's the one that actually flags down Gabe and Sid, and she's the one that kind of brings them over. Tyrone gets up and he's basically better for wear at that point. He's okay. But the reason I'm putting everything here is that all we got out of them canonically was a cutscene, and then after that, we just don't get anything else at all. Marcella was up and looking fine. Tyrone was down for a moment, so I'm putting Marcella above just out of the default setting of Marcella didn't seem to have any problems. Tyrone had a minor problem. That's the only reason it's like this. And this is where the rule is kind of broken for me. So, as I said in the beginning of things, and I've said when we looked at the tier list, we have a standard cog soldier is normally the middle of mid tiers where I'd place them because they are trained gears, and a normal gear is normally having the training and the abilities that puts them in mid. Onyx Guard have higher trainings, which puts them into the high tier. Onyx Guard you do not mess with. So, I break the rules here because of the fact that Marcella and Tyrone are trained gears, but like I said earlier with Tyrone and Marcella with like the cutscene, that's all we get. We don't get anything else. We don't know anything else about their backstories. We have no clue, period. As far as we are aware, Marcella and Tyrone, this is like the furthest they ever get in the story. They could have died like 2 missions in and it was all done for them. That's as far as we know or where we can place them. So I'm putting them here because we just don't get anything else. Like, Ben Carmine is down here, but Ben, we at least know a lot of stuff about him, and we know he was green as grass. This was day 1 mission. Yes, he was a trained gear at the end of it all, but this was day 1 and he died. Yeah, he went through a lot, but he still died. Gary Carmine was down here because he was trained by a drunken Oscar. like, there's characters that fall into low tier that have a reason. I originally, if I was going by my rule, they would be the lowest of the low in the mid tier, but I just felt it wouldn't be right. So I put them both here in low because I felt like we didn't get anything. So I think right here is going to be good for the low tier. Going into the mid tier now, we have, actually starting off everything, Michaela Dorn. So we have Michaela here. I placed her here because I felt it was a good place. Now, again, people can say, oh, she's stranded. You know, she never had formal training. She was a civilian before she became anything involving Gabe's team or anything. You are 100% correct. So why does she stack above, even into the mid tier, above Marcella and Tyrone, who are trained gears? That's an easy answer. It's because of the fact that Michaela, she is hella equipped with a sniper rifle. So she is not the best sniper in the entire story. There are characters that far surpass her. For instance, Germán on the Locust side surpasses her. Padrick surpasses her. Bernie surpasses her. There are many snipers that are better than her, but it's the fact that she's able to put those skills to work, and she is able to not only use those abilities and hold out after everything happened with the hammers, but she's also the leader of a stranded group. In my mind, if you're leading the stranded, you're definitely not going to be the bottom of the barrel. Like, you had to do something to earn the level of basically leader. And by the look of it, she does have skills to pay the bills. She's got the attitude. She's got the brain. She has 2 doctorates in engineering. So right there, she's got brain for brawn. It has been stated, though, and that's why she's on the lower end of mid for me right now, that she can, you know, go off the rails. Like, her anger can get the better of her. That's been shown. It's shown that she does have trust issues with the COG in general, but I have a feeling with people in general, by what we've seen, if you go against her, trust is kind of gone right away. So I have her set for, if I had to put everyone onto the mid tier and kind of look at that, I feel like she would be... Now here's the thing, I look at their peaks, so I have to look at her after she's also trained by Gabe and after she's with Alpha Squad or Gabe's Convoy for a while. So I would honestly see her... I think the best place I could put her would probably be around a little bit higher than a standard gear, just because, yes, she's trained by Gabe, but Gabe was training a plethora of people at the time, and he didn't really do any hands-on training with Michaela. He kind of saw that she had the abilities on her own for what she could do, so he never really tinkered with that at all. He basically just provided armor. That's all he really did. So I see her being a little higher than a standard gear, but I don't see her really making it to a higher echelon of the mid-tier, unfortunately. Coming up to lead our mid-tier, we have Raina Diaz. So, I have Raina Diaz here. We're not going to do Raina Torres because of the fact that, like I said, I take characters at their peaks. Raina was not at her peak when she was with Gabe during his convoy and when they became outsiders. Basically, when she came to lead the outsiders, that's when she was at her peak in my eyes. We're not going to use the leader of the swarm, Raina, because of the fact that that's got a whole bunch of other things going on. That's got Mira piloted, basically a swarmed out body. We're not going to touch that because that is not Raina we're dealing with. We're talking about Raina herself. So, Raina is very fascinating because of the de-aging in general. So, the reason I have her above Michaela, even though she was a child around Michaela, well, physically a child, basically around 16 or 17, she was a child. Her age itself, she was roughly in her 30s to 40s at that time, I believe. Like, she was older because of the fact that, because she's the daughter of Mira, aging is a lot different for her. So by the time we get to where she's the leader of the outsiders, and we get to like Gears of War 4, for instance, she's like, I think 70s to 80s, and she's still rocking like a 30-year-old body, basically, because of the de-aging. She ages like twice as slow. We've made videos and talked about her aging, but she is roughly older than what she actually appears to be. The reason I put it here is like when she was out and about with Torres, the scientist, basically they were the first style of stranded, kind of, except they were away from everyone, like COG, military, civilization, everything. And she was taught to fight, and she did learn some moves, and she understood how to defend herself and how to survive. She teamed up with Gabe's Convoy, with Gabe, and when they teamed up, she started to learn like how to fight even more, weapons and everything, and she was very well adept at training. So when she finally got to the point where they started the outpost and Kate was born, she was hands-on training Kate with knives, which that's mothering on a whole different level. And as we can see in 4, she's mastered basically dual-wielded, like, what would they be, basically? They're not knives or daggers. They're basically, like, mini swords she's got. Can't think of the name off the top of my head, like a kure knife or something, I think. I don't remember. But basically she's rocking those, and she's fighting with that. So she's well adept at hand-to-hand, very well. Even fighting the speaker, she did put in some work. She didn't do too much, but she did a lot more than most. So the reason I have her higher up is because she has a lot more experience when it comes to things compared to characters like Michaela or Marcella and Tyrone, who were formally trained. You know, she has the experience. She has a lot of knowledge for all the time she's been around, and she knows that she's been around and all the training she's done. So I have her higher mid-tier because she does have the skills to pay the bills. She doesn't make it into high just because there are characters that have had a lot more formal training and have polished that off and have gone beyond their training. For instance, like, and I'm going to pull out the heavy hitters for this one, Ty Caliso, Marcus Phoenix. You have like Clay Carmine, who have gone through formal trainings, but they have, you know, also accelerated or become very well in their fields. Marcus being the soldier of soldiers, Ty being trained not only in the tribes but with the cog. You know, they have very well knowledge of how to battle. She has knowledge on how to battle, but she's never gotten that really like molded her abilities into being like, here is some, like, it's a very unpredictable element that she is, kind of like, it's very chaotic for her way of fighting and combat. She does have formal tactics and everything, but it was always said that Diaz, for Gabe, he was always the brains of everything. Now we make our way to the high tier. So with the high tier, we're going to start off with Sid Redburn. So Sid makes his way into the high tier. Sid has gone through some stuff. Sid has been around. Now when it comes to Raina, when we talked about experience, the same for Sid. Now he doesn't have the ability to, like, you know, his body ages slower. He's been around a while. He is older. I think he's in his, I want to say his late 60s to 70s, around that age range he is. He's been around a bit. He's been around for New Hope. He's been around for the Pendulum Wars. He made it all the way up to Major status. He was sent by Prescott to go deal with Gabe and get him to help out. Then he left with Gabe, so he's been doing a lot of stuff. So when it comes to Sid, I have him set for high tier because it has been relatively touched upon, like, Sid you don't mess with. Like, when Sid is fighting characters, like even just hand-to-hand or getting the upper hand on characters or his abilities, it's shown that he really is a strong powerhouse. He is, or at least his combat-wise, even with a rifle, he's very, like, deadly. Like, he is going in for the kill in the bloodiest of fashions. Now, he fights, his signature is the Retro Lancer. Now, at the time, when we're looking at Gabe's Convoy and Gears Tactics, the Retro Lancer is kind of standard, you know, like, they have, at that point, the Lancers, the Mark IIs, but there's still a lot of people using Retros. And Sid is very proficient with the Mark I Lancers, with the bayonets. He's very proficient. So when we look at that, he's very, very good at battle. He's a tanky boy. He's been around a long time. He went through everything over at the New Hope facility when he was a guard. Tells you how long he's been around. And he has taken battle damage and continued to move forward. Now, when there was an interaction with him, Gabe, and Michaela, now he knocked Gabe out in one hit, but it was also a surprise hit, so you can't really chalk a lot of that up. Michaela was ready to blow his head off at any moment, and he kind of just sat there like, go ahead, do it. You want to try it? Shoot me. Go for it. Why not? And Michaela did not. Not because Michaela was afraid to, but I think Sid was well aware, like, if you are really going to do it, you are going to shoot me. If not, get out of my way. And that's just badass. So I do see Sid making it to the high tier. Now, we have to look at his peak. The only peak we know of is from Tactics. So if I have to take that and put that into the high scale where he falls with every character, he really is sadly towards the low end of the high tier. Just because, like we have issues with, like, Hoffman, Bernie, as they're getting older, we do see, and the story does touch on it a lot with the older characters, age is taking its toll on the characters. Like, with Hoffman, we see, like, he really isn't as spry as he once was in the books. Bernie even sits there and says, like, she's not what she used to be, you know, and you can see it with Sid. He is becoming an older gentleman. He is getting on in his years. So I would say he's probably going towards the lower end of high, but with everything he's done, his formal training and everything he was able to do throughout, and what we see of him plan through tactics, I do believe he does make high tier. Just, he doesn't make that high into the high tier. Finally, leading the charge, we have Gabe Diaz, who is sitting right at the tippity top, at the top in high tier. So, Gabe makes it to the higher end of high tier, at least for this list. Now, if I put him in a list of everyone, he's roughly, I would say, if he's not higher low, he's definitely mid-high tier. That's where I would have to put him, just because of the fact that Gabe doesn't have anything special when it comes to, like, brawn, or when it comes to, like, crazy feats that we've seen, like in the books with Marcus, single-handedly busting open a tank and taking that thing over and killing UIR, or, like, when it comes to all of this other stuff, you know, he doesn't have that. What makes Gabe a very effective and powerful character, it's the same kind of thing when I talk about Karn a lot. He is a very smart, very tactical person. Now, intelligence-wise, he's not the brightest person in the world. He's not a genius like Adam Phoenix level. He's not like that. But he is, like, very smart in a tactical sense. His battle IQ is off the charts. It is very high up there. The man is constantly spending his time in the story planning, making ideas, decisions. Every mission you go on is a part of Gabe's plan. The side missions, as much as they peeve me off half the time, it is all a part of Gabe's plan. Everything is under Gabe's decision and planning. Every single part. Now, of course, there's cutscenes where, like, Michaela and Sid throw in their ideas and he adapts them in. But yeah, he plans most of this. All of it is really just his tactical chessboard he's dealing with Ukkon. That's what he's doing. The retreat and everything to Vaskar, that was his decision. We have to retreat. They weren't pushed into a corner. No, he chose for them to retreat and for them to build and plan out their next attack. That was all Gabe. Everything was under Gabe's decision, and I think that was just, if you really look at everything that he did tactically, crazy. He also started the outsider camp that Raina Diaz also led with him when it finally came to the end of the war. And here's the thing you need to remember. All of these characters, the only two we know of that make it to the end of the Locust War are Raina and Gabe. They're the only two. And think of it like this. Like, they're at the end of the war, and they continue after that through the 25 years of peace. Now, yes, Gabe does pass away from Rustlung. It's sad. We all hated that. I hated it. I hated to see Gabe go and hear about it. You obviously can't see it. It's in the books. But he did die from Rustlung. But he made it to the end of the Locust War. They went through Vaskar, fighting off Locust, killing off the last of Ukkon's pets. He was leading that the entire time. He led that for a good 16 years. Then the peace happened, and they were finally able to chill again and return back over to Tyrus, over in Aphira. They were able, well, not Aphira. Aphira is the capital. They were there for a bit, but they never settled in Aphira. In Tyrus, they went up to the outer portions where they settled at the outsider camp that they had. So he's high tier because his planning is just on that level where, you know, we did the Marcus versus Rom live stream once, and we talked about who would win, and it actually came out a lot closer than you think it would. And we talked about their battle IQs, and it's just like, yeah, they're okay, they're not bad, but they are nothing compared to Gabe's. If you're talking about the higher echelon of battle IQ, Gabe is at the top. He knows a chessboard when he sees one. Yes, he did get knocked out by Sid, but it was all a surprise attack. It's not like he was out for good. He got up like 3 minutes later. So I do believe Gabe is up here. Now, he's not sitting at like the highest echelon of high. It's not going to be like that. Like, if you have to compare statistically or abilities or anything comparing Gabe to the others that are up there, like with Ty Kaliso, I believe Ty is going to be higher than Gabe. Clay Carmine is probably going to be higher than Gabe. Again, like, Gabe is not made to be a one-on-one, hand-to-hand fighter. Gabe is made to be just, I have the ideas, I'm out on the field, here's what everyone's going to be doing, make your way here, here, or here, here's where we're going to be throwing grenades, here's the squads we take out. That's what he does. So Gabe, just out of his intellect alone, really does put him into the high tier portion. He also has his history in the Pendulum Wars, which he was going around and he was a part of, basically like Black Ops. He was doing things behind the scenes during the Pendulum Wars. And then he finally just retired to the motor pool because he was like, I'm just done with all this crap. No, I lost friends and everything. Finito, we're done. So I think Gabe does earn his spot above Sid. Even towards the end of Gears of War Tactics or Gears Tactics, you do see Sid kind of does recognize, at least like Gabe is the leader. You know, whether who's stronger or more fit or who can win in a fight, that's all up to interpretation, but Sid does recognize Gabe as the leader. He may call him Motorpool, but this is Gabe's show that he's a part of. And that's going to do it for Gabe's Convoy for the tier list. I'm happy we got to finally do it. We are all caught up on our tier lists now. Now, when I get to the new tier lists, that's going to be a while, because I like to do these after the discussion series, or at least at the very end of them, so that I can go over the characters we talk about. Now, I can do characters we have already talked about, but I want to put them into their actual like tier list with like other discussion series. Like we did a Franklin to Soko video years and years back. Whenever I get to doing a Stranded discussion series, then I'd like to put him in the Stranded discussion series for like the polls, or like not even the polls, but like the tier lists and everything, and put statistics. Like I want to do it then. But for now, I think that's going to do it for the tier list for a little while until we get the next discussion series, which I have a good idea what it's going to be, but we're going to have to wait till next year for us to actually cover it. Until then, tier lists are taken care of. I want to thank you all for watching. I want to thank everyone for making this possible. Thank the patrons for making this possible. Who knows? Maybe if people really want to see more tier lists, I'll do more. I'll just be like, you know what? Who's the sexiest character in Gears tier list? Or let's do who's the better weapon handler thingamabobber? Who could win in a fight fist to fist with a drone? I don't know. But yeah, that's gonna do it. Thank you all to death. I love you all to death. I will see you guys in the next video. Catch you in the next one. Later.